Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling two really iconic drinks, digging into our sources to explore the stories behind the martini and, well, rum.
Yeah, it's a great pairing, actually.
It is, isn't it? They seem so different. One's got that sophisticated city vibe, the other just screams tropical warmth. But, they've both carved out these incredible histories.
Exactly. And our goal here, I think, is to go beyond just, how to make them. We want to get into the why they've stuck around, why they mean what they mean.
Right. Unpack that enduring appeal.
Yeah.
So let's start with the martini. It's always had this element of mystery, hasn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Our sources lay out quite a few potential origin stories. And I actually think the fact that we don't have one clear answer kind of adds to the romance. What do you think?
I completely agree. That ambiguity, it feeds the mystique. I mean, you've got the Martinez story, right? California gold rush, a miner strikes it rich.
Yeah, you can almost picture it. Dusty saloon, maybe?
Sort of. And the drink itself, Old Tom gin, sweet vermouth, maraschino, bitters. It sounds much, sweeter and rounder than what we think of now.
Definitely not the sharp, dry martini of today. Then there's the idea it's named after Martini and Rossi vermouth, which seems plausible.
Plausible, yeah. Or the Knickerbocker Hotel in New York, bartender named Martini di Arma di Taggia, around 1910 or so.
Okay. And that version used drier gin and French vermouth.
That's the story, yeah. Which feels much closer to the modern martini's ancestor.
So you have these competing images, the rugged West versus elegant New York. It lets the drink be kind of both things at once.
Precisely. And that's part of its charm, that it holds these multiple possibilities.
Okay, so speaking of that move towards elegance, or at least towards dryness, our sources really emphasize this big shift in the early 20th century. What drove that?
Well, a few key things happened. First, the gin itself changed. People moved away from the sweeter Old Tom gin towards London dry gin.
Which has that much stronger juniper hit, right?
Yeah.
That pine needle aroma.
Exactly. More assertive, cleaner tasting. And then French vermouth, which is typically drier than Italian, became more popular for martinis.
Okay, so drier gin, drier vermouth.
And crucially, the ratio changed. Big time. It went from, maybe equal parts gin and vermouth, or even more vermouth, to the gin really dominating.
To the point where the vermouth became almost symbolic. I mean, we read about those super dry martinis.
Oh yeah, like the Montgomery Martini, supposedly 15 parts gin to 1 part vermouth. It's almost like just waving the vermouth bottle over the glass.
It makes you wonder.
But, this wasn't just about taste preference. It tapped into something bigger, a kind of modernist aesthetic. Clean lines, efficiency,
So the drier martini in its sleek, chilled glass became a symbol of that. Sophistication, modernity.
I think so. It was served in the chic bars of London and New York. It wasn't just a cocktail, it was a statement, a very precisely made statement.
And it certainly made its way into culture. Hemingway, for instance. His characters often drank martinis. Very cold, very dry ones.
Yes. In A Farewell to Arms, he calls it civilized. Talks about how cool and clean it tasted.
Why do you think it resonated so much with him, with that world?
Well, maybe in those often chaotic times his characters lived through, the ritual of a perfectly made, stark martini offered a kind of order, control, a moment of clarity, perhaps, that cool and clean feeling.
A little bit of calculated detachment?
Maybe, yeah. And then, of course, you absolutely have to mention Bond. James Bond.
Cannot talk martinis without Bond. Shaken, not stirred. The Vesper.
Instantly iconic. And that recipe, 3 measures of Gordon's gin, 1 of vodka, half a measure of Quina Lillet. It's very specific.
And the vodka's interesting there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of points towards what came later.
It really does. The Vesper itself, mixing gin and vodka, was unusual. And the shaking, well, purists will tell you stirring is better for clarity and texture.
Right. Less dilution, less cloudiness.
But the shaking added to that Bond image precision, but maybe slightly unconventional. Cool. It definitely boosted the martini's global profile.
Which leads us nicely into the whole vodka thing. Post-World War II, vodka just exploded in popularity.
It really did. And inevitably, the vodka martini, or the kangaroo, or vodkatini as some called it, was born.
And you had the purists saying, it's not a real martini without gin.
Of course. But vodka offered something different. It's much more neutral, right? So the drink became more about the chill, the texture, maybe a hint of vermouth rather than complex botanicals.
A cleaner slate, maybe?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
It appealed to a different palate. So you ended up with these 2 parallel tracks, the classic gin martini and the popular vodka martini, each with its own fans.
And that adaptability just kept going. I mean, look at all the variations now.
Absolutely. You've got the perfect martini.
Equal parts sweet and dry vermouth.
Right. The Gibson with the little cocktail onion instead of an olive.
Which has its own hazy origin stories linked to diplomats or illustrators.
And the dirty martini, adding olive brine for that salty, savory kick.
Love a good dirty martini sometimes.
And even things like the espresso martini, which, okay, isn't technically a martini in the classic sense.
No gin or vermouth in sight.
But it borrows the name, the glass, that sense of occasion. It shows how the basic martini concept, strong, cold, served up, is just a really versatile canvas.
It really is. And finally, let's touch on the ritual. Our sources describe making a martini as this almost mindful process.
It can be, yeah. There's a certain satisfaction in the precision. Chilling the glass properly, often in the freezer until it's frosted.
Using good solid ice in a chilled mixing glass.
Right, minimizing dilution, then deciding how much vermouth, maybe just a swirl and discard for ultra dry or measured amount, pouring the gin or vodka over the ice.
And the stir versus shake debate. Most classicists prefer stirring, don't they, for about 30 seconds.
Generally, yes. It chills thoroughly while keeping that clarity and smooth texture. Shaking aerates it more, can make it cloudy, chills it faster, but maybe dilutes it more.
And straining it into that beautifully cold glass.
And the final touch, the garnish. A plump olive, maybe, or expressing the oils from a lemon twist over the surface.
Each step feels quite deliberate.
It does. It elevates it from just mixing a drink to, a small ritual, a moment of focus.
So quite a journey for the martini.
Okay.
From those mysterious roots to this global symbol of cool, its adaptability seems key.
It really does. That and the enduring enigma.
Okay. Let's completely shift gears now. Let's head to the tropics and dive into the world of rum. Such a different vibe, but just as rich a history.
Absolutely. And the story of rum, well, it begins with sugarcane, Saccharum officinarum.
That tall, grassy plant you see growing in tropical regions. Our sources describe the harvest, sometimes still by hand with machetes, sometimes mechanically.
And the crucial first step is crushing those stalks to get the sweet juice, cane juice, or visu as it's called in some places.
And some rums, the rum agricoles, are actually made directly from that fresh juice, aren't they? Giving them a really distinct, grassy, earthy flavor.
Exactly, very terroir driven. But for most rum, that juice gets boiled down. Sugar crystallizes out, and what's left behind is molasses.
Molasses. The key ingredient for so many rums. Our sources describe it as this thick, dark, bittersweet syrup.
Yeah, with notes of like toffee, licorice, burnt sugar, really deep and earthy. It's packed with flavor potential. That's the starting point.
And from there, it's fermentation, diluting the molasses or cane juice with water to make the wash.
Right, and then introducing yeast to convert those sugars into alcohol.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, especially with those wild ferments mentioned in places like Jamaica, using yeast just floating around in the air.
Yeah, in open-top vats, often wooden ones, these ambient local yeasts create incredibly complex, sometimes really funky estery flavors, those vibrant, fruity, sometimes unexpected aromas.
You can almost smell the description: sweet, bready, a bit acidic, bubbling away.
It's a very natural process. Of course, many distilleries use carefully cultivated proprietary yeast strains too. Those are closely guarded secrets. Or commercial distillers' yeast for consistency.
And in Jamaica, they sometimes add dunder. What is that exactly?
It's basically the residue left in the still after distillation. It's rich in acids and other compounds, and adding it back to the fermenting wash helps encourage the production of those really high levels of esters, giving Jamaican rums their characteristic, powerful, savory, aromatic profile.
Wow. So fermentation is this kind of quiet, patient transformation, really capturing the local environment in some cases.
It really is. Then comes distillation, concentrating that alcohol and shaping the spirit's character. Two main methods, pot stills and column stills.
pot stills, those are the more traditional copper ones, like an old alchemist's alembic.
Pretty much, yeah. Usually copper, which is important because it reacts with and removes unwanted sulfur compounds. It's a batch process. You distill a batch, clean it out, start again, often distilled twice or even 3 times.
And the result is generally a heavier, more flavorful rum.
Typically, yes. Pot stills are less efficient at separating flavor, so more of those congeners, the flavor compounds beyond alcohol, carry over. Think rich, robust, aromatic rums, Jamaican rum, many Guyanese rums.
Got it. And column stills, they look quite different. Tall towers.
Right. Tall, often stainless steel columns with plates inside. They work continuously. Steam rises, stripping the alcohol and lighter flavors from the wash that cascades down. Distillers can draw off spirit at different heights to get different characteristics.
So they tend to produce lighter, maybe cleaner rums.
Generally, yes. More neutral spirits, often smoother. Think of many Cuban or Puerto Rican style rums, often prized for mixing in cocktails.
But like our sources say, one isn't necessarily better than the other.
Not at all, just different tools for different styles. And many rums are actually blends of spirits from both pot and column stills to get the desired complexity and balance. The choice of still is just fundamental to the rum's final character.
Okay, so after distillation, we have the new spirit. Then comes aging, and this is where the tropical climate really works its magic. Our sources call it a dance with humidity and heat.
That's a great description. The spirit goes into wooden barrels, usually oak, often ones that previously held bourbon, but sherry, cognac, wine casks are used too. And in the warmth and humidity of the Caribbean, everything happens faster.
The interaction between the spirit and the wood is more intense.
Much more intense. Think about those aging warehouses, the rum cellars. You've got warm air circulating, and that smell, that sweet woody aroma, that's the angel's share evaporating.
And a lot more evaporates in the tropics, right? Like 6 to 10% a year.
Yeah.
Compared to maybe 2% for Scotch whiskey in cool Scotland.
Exactly. So you lose more volume faster, but the spirit matures and concentrates its flavors much more quickly too.
It's a trade-off. What's actually happening inside that barrel?
It's this constant interaction. The spirit expands into the wood, pours when it's warm, contracts when it cools, pulling out compounds like vanillin, tannins, lactones, color. It mellows the harsh edges of the young spirit, adds layers of complexity, develops smoothness. It's like the climate turbocharges the whole process.
Giving it that unique, vibrant, sort of sun-drenched character.
Precisely. It's a really dynamic maturation.
And then, the final step before bottling. The blender's art. Most rums we drink are blends, aren't they?
The vast majority, yes. And this is where the master blender comes in. It's a role that requires incredible sensory skill.
They're nosing and tasting samples from different barrels, different ages, maybe different still types.
Exactly. In the sample room, they're assessing everything: color, aroma, is it fruity, spicy, woody, sweet, estery, taste, texture, body, the finish.
And the goal is to combine these different elements to create something harmonious, consistent.
Both. They want to create a rum that's greater than the sum of its parts, balancing maybe robust pot still rums with lighter column still ones, or blending young, vibrant rums with older, more complex ones. It takes incredible patience and precision. They're really the guardians of the distillery's signature style.
It sounds like conducting an orchestra, really, bringing all these different notes together.
That's a good analogy. From the sugarcane right through to that final blend, it's a process deeply connected to the place, the climate, and a lot of human skill.
It definitely makes you appreciate what's in the glass. That sip of sunshine, the soul of the Caribbean, as our sources put it.
Absolutely. So different from the Martini story, yet both show this amazing evolution shaped by history, taste, and ingenuity.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it's clear the Martini and rum, while worlds apart in some ways, are so much more than just drinks. They really are chronicles of history, changing tastes, human creativity,
Cultural exchange, even technology with the stills, they reflect so much.
which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. Think about how the places these drinks came from, the bustling city, the tropical island, and the cultures around them shaped what they became. How much does that context still influence how we enjoy them today? And what other everyday things, maybe seemingly simple things, hold these kinds of rich, layered stories?
Imagine that scent, crushed mint, sharp lime, and just a hint of sugarcane sweetness, like on a warm day. Today, we're diving into the story behind a drink that really captures that feeling: the Mojito. You shared some amazing sources with us, exploring its history, its culture, and our mission really is to unpack how this iconic cocktail got started, from maybe some pretty shadowy origins all the way to being loved worldwide. We'll look at the legends, the ingredients, the cultural bits that shaped it.
It really is amazing, isn't it, how something that seems so, well, simple, just a few fresh things mixed together, can have such a deep story behind it.
Yeah.
And when you start digging into a drink like the Mojito, something everyone knows,
Yeah.
you find these fascinating links to bigger historical moments.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Maybe way back, like 16th century, there's this pretty swashbuckling story about Drake, Sir Francis Drake.
Ah, yes, the Drake connections.
Right, so picture it. Drake's ships are near Cuba. His crew, they're really suffering. Scurvy, dysentery, the works.
Pretty grim conditions on those voyages.
Yeah, totally. And the story goes, a landing party went ashore and either found, or maybe they were given, these basic things. Aguardiente de caña. That's like an early sugarcane spirit. Very rough stuff.
Okay.
Plus mint, lime juice, and sugarcane juice, or maybe just sugar.
And what's really interesting there is this idea of it being maybe part refreshment, part, basic medicine.
Exactly.
Because back then, long sea voyages, huge health problems. Scurvy was a massive killer. So lime juice, vitamin C, even if they didn't fully grasp the science.
You're right, they knew it helped somehow.
And mint can be soothing. Combine that with the alcohol, well, it might have served a purpose beyond just being a drink.
Yeah, this early version, El Drac, named after Drake supposedly, it wasn't like a fancy cocktail bar drink, more like a practical brew, maybe even helped keep them going.
You can sort of picture them finding some relief in it, definitely.
But, and this is important, as your sources pointed out, we need to be a bit careful with this story.
A healthy dose of skepticism is probably warranted.
Yeah. It's a great story, very romantic, pirates and all that, but actual hard evidence directly linking this El Draque to the mojito we drink today, it's pretty thin.
It's elusive, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still a captivating tale, isn't it? It shows how we love to create these origin myths around things we enjoy.
Oh, absolutely. And it does highlight how appealing those basic flavors, mint, lime, sweet, always were, even in that rough form. But let's move to more solid ground, because whatever the truth about Drake, the mojito's real home, its undeniable homeland, is Cuba.
Definitely.
And that's tied directly to sugarcane.
Oh, completely. You can't talk about Cuba without talking about sugarcane. It's fundamental to the landscape, the economy, the culture for centuries.
And sugarcane, of course, is the foundation for Cuban rum.
Precisely. The spirit that's really at the heart of the mojito we know now. Light, crisp, Cuban rum.
And it wasn't just the rum base. Cuba had the perfect climate for the other key players too, right?
Exactly. You had yerba buena, the good herb, mint, just growing everywhere apparently, with that really refreshing, cool, slightly peppery quality.
Love that smell.
And then limes, loads of them, so aromatic, bursting with that bright, tart juice.
So when you put it all together, the rum, the mint, the lime, the sugar from the cane, it almost feels like the mojito just had to happen there, doesn't it?
It does seem like a natural evolution, yeah. Like Cuban ingenuity taking these amazing local resources readily available and creating something, well, simply delightful, a real expression of place.
Yeah, a taste of the island itself. Okay, so the drink starts getting popular in Cuba, and then the bar scene in Havana becomes really important, particularly one place, La Bodeguita del Medio.
Ah, La Bodeguita. It's fascinating how a physical space can become so tied to something like a cocktail.
And it wasn't some huge fancy place, was it? Your sources describe it as pretty small, intimate.
Right, walls just covered in signatures, photos, memorabilia left by visitors over years. A real hub for, artists, writers, intellectuals, a melting pot.
And you basically can't mention La Bodeguita without mentioning Ernest Hemingway.
The Hemingway connection, it's iconic.
That famous line, supposedly written by him on the wall, "My mojito in La Bodeguita, my daiquiri in El Floridita," it just sticks with you.
It really does. Now, historians debate how much time Hemingway actually spent there. Some say the link might be, shall we say, embellished a bit for tourism, more folklore than fact.
Right, the legend might be bigger than the reality.
But, regardless of the exact truth, the impact of that association was huge. It gave the bar and the Mojito this kind of literary bohemian cool factor.
Absolutely, it drew people in.
International visitors flocked there. They wanted to drink that drink, Hemingway's supposed favorite, in that bar. It's a classic example of how celebrity, even rumored celebrity, shapes culture.
So La Bodeguita becomes this sort of pilgrimage spot. You go there for the authentic Cuban cocktail experience, soak up that unique vibe.
You can almost imagine the buzz, the music, the chatter, the clinking glasses. The energy of Havana concentrated in that little bar.
Yeah, and that helped spread the Mojito's fame even further. It became more than just a drink. It was a symbol of Cuban hospitality, Havana's spirit.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked history, legend, place. Let's get down to the specifics. What actually goes into making a great mojito? The art of it.
Yes. Let's break it down. So, traditional ingredients. You need fresh mint, specifically yerba buena if you can get it. Granulated white sugar is classic, though some bartenders use simple syrup for easier dissolving. And crucially, fresh lime juice, not the bottled stuff.
Never the bottled stuff. Fresh is key. But then comes the really critical step, the muddling.
Ah, yes, the make or break moment.
It really is. And the sources you shared likely stresses it's about finesse. You're not trying to wage war on the mint leaves.
Ah, right. No pulverizing.
Exactly. If you tear them up too much, you release chlorophyll, makes it bitter. It's more like gentle persuasion. Just press lightly with the muddler.
Bruise them slightly.
Just enough to release those amazing fragrant oils. That's where the mint flavor comes from. Let it mingle with the sugar and lime. One source called it soft persuasion, not a battle, which I thought was perfect.
That's a great way to put it. You want to coax the aroma out, not beat it up. Okay, so after the gentle muddle.
Then comes the rum. Good quality Cuban white rum is traditional, it's light, clean, lets those fresh flavors shine.
Doesn't overpower things.
Right. Then ice, often cracked ice, or maybe smaller cubes. More surface area means faster chilling.
Get it nice and cold.
And then the final touch, a splash of sparkling soda water that gives it the fizz, the effervescence, makes it so refreshing.
Lifts everything up, and then just a gentle stir, right? Don't want to stir out all the bubbles.
Just enough to combine everything. And the classic garnish. A nice sprig of fresh mint, maybe a lime wedge on the rim. Simple, elegant.
It sounds straightforward, but each step matters for that perfect balance.
It really does that. Balance the aromatic mint, the sharp lime, the sweetness, the clean rum, the fizz. That's what makes it so universally appealing, I think. It just wakes up your senses.
And from those Cuban roots, wow, the mojito has just exploded globally, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere. On menus from fancy city bars to beach shacks around the world.
It's become this shorthand for summer relaxation.
Carefree moments, holidays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's quite a journey when you think about it, from maybe a sailor's rough remedy.
To this global symbol of leisure. It really shows the power of simple things done well. How something rooted in one place, one culture can just resonate everywhere.
It really has. That combination, fresh, zesty, sweet, bubbly, it just works. It's timeless. A perfect example of a local treasure going global.
And it's a nice reminder, isn't it, that sometimes the simplest things, made with care, bring the most pleasure. There's a real elegance in that uncomplicated mix.
So, the Mojito story, from possibly pirates to Hemingway's Havana to basically every summer party you go to now, it's this amazing blend of history, myth, culture, and just, well, simple enjoyment. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other things we see every day have these kinds of rich, surprising stories hidden inside them?
That's a great point. What other ordinary things have extraordinary journeys just waiting for us to, well, dive into?